Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ. Now, hear me out. You need to listen to the story I tell at the beginning, and then we get into frozen pizza. Just listen, okay? Just don't turn it off. Don't go back to a previous episode, and certainly don't switch it over to SmartList because those guys are idiots. So just stay here with JJ Meets World and enjoy this episode. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Tucker, are you familiar with the Russian folk tale, The Soldier and Death?
No.
Allow me to regale you with a story.
Okay.
So a soldier is finishing his tour of duty a long way from home, and he begins the walk that will lead him back to his homeland. And along this walk, he has nothing but 3 dried biscuits to eat. So he stops when he sees an old beggar who is playing like a little tiny like instrument. Doesn't matter, just an
Russian instrument. Yeah.
And he stops and he dances with this guy, and the guy says, "Is the dance worth a farthing?" And he goes, "More." But I don't have any money. I do have a dried biscuit. And so he gives him a dried biscuit, and then he begins to dance again and has a wonderful time dancing with this guy. And he goes, "You deserve a better whistle." And so the man starts walking away, and his whistle becomes something like a bird. It is just beautiful and just wonderful. So as he's walking along with his darling whistle, he stops, and there's another old beggar. And this old beggar asks him to play a game of cards. And he watches this guy deal out a perfect deck over and over and over again. And he goes, "What a trick." And the beggar says, "Is it worth a farthing?" And he says, "No, I have no money, but I will give you this dried biscuit." And the guy says, "Well, let me trade you for this deck of cards, and may they never lose a hand for you." So now he's got his cards and he's playing with them and he's flicking them in the air, and he's finding himself, he's able to have his ruby whistle, and he's playing with his deck of cards. He comes upon another old beggar, and this old beggar says, "Could you spare something to eat?" And he says, "I have nothing but 1 dried biscuit left, and you can share it with me if you'd like." Cracks the biscuit in 2, gives him half, and he realizes, it doesn't feel right that he's only giving this guy half, and he gave the last 2 a full biscuit. So he hands him the other half, and the man says, "You're a man who deserves better luck. I'm going to give you a gift. This sack, which is plain and ordinary in appearance, if you order something into it like a bird or a beast, it will go and find itself inside this sack." So the soldier continues off and thinks of the good fortune he's had to meet 3 men down on their luck who've graced his journey. So he goes alongside this lake, and there's 3 geese on the lake. And he goes, "Geese, get in my sack." And sure enough, the animals stop where they're heading, and they immediately come and get into the sack itself. So he stops at an inn that night, and the innkeeper says, "Hello, sir. Can I help you?" And he goes, "I have 3 geese in this sack. I'd like 1 for my supper, and you can keep the other 2 in exchange for room and board." And the innkeeper says, "Yes, of course." And so he roasts it in clove and honey, and the soldier drinks wine. He licks the bones clean on the goose that's been cooked for him, and he sleeps for 3 days. He wakes up and asks the innkeeper why the village is so thriving, but it looks like the castle is empty. And he goes, "Oh, the castle's been taken over by devils. And every night they play cards up in that castle. And unfortunately, the Tsar, a kind and wonderful man, has had to uproot and leave. And it's actually been pretty bad for our community." So the soldier says, "I think I'm going to check that place out." And the innkeeper, of course, says, "That's folly. That's ridiculous." So the Soldier heads up there, and sure enough, at the stroke of midnight, the great room fills with devils. And he challenges them to a card game and says, would you mind playing a card game with me? And they said, all right, what are the stakes? And he said, well, what would you like? And they said, well, we've got 40 barrels of gold. What about you? And he goes, I have nothing but myself. Fine, we will play for your immortal soul and your teeth. I collect teeth, says one devil. So he begins to play with the devils, and he deals out one perfect hand after another. He wins and wins and wins. The devils are just angry, and they begin fuming. And one devil says to the other, how can he be winning? Is he cheating? He goes, well, I'm cheating, and he's still winning. At the stroke of 6 a.m., just as the sun's about to come up, the devils say, this is unfair. We can't believe this. You've won our 40 barrels of gold. I think we'll take our prize anyway. And the soldier orders the devils into a sack. And all the devils find themselves uncontrollably marching directly into the sack. The soldier carries them along and happens to hit the sack against a tree, hits it against the cliff. It just is, he's taking the sack to town. So he releases the devils on the agreement that they will leave this place and never come back. He grabs one devil just at the end, takes the devil's foot off, and says, I'm going to keep this, and you serve me now. If I request your presence, you must arrive and help me at that moment. And the devil agrees just as he's taking off. Well, the Tsar is able to return to the palace, and the land finds wealth and happiness and riches. It is just absolutely a miracle for everyone in the area. Unfortunately, the soldier, who now knows the love of a woman and the embrace of a child, finds that his son is sick and dying. And soon there's men with long beards checking out the situation, and they are replaced by holy men who come to pray over the child, and finally a man coming to measure a coffin. The soldier takes the devil's foot out of his pocket that he keeps with him and pleads for the devil to come help him. And the devil says, yes, my lord, I will help you in this situation. Take this glass, a simple glass with 4 sides, box style. Look at your child's head through the glass. Do you see anything? And he says, yes, there's a small figure. And he says, is the figure behind your child's head or at the foot of the bed? He says, it's at the foot of the bed. He goes, that figure is death. And because he's at the foot of the bed, you can take a drop of water from inside the glass, throw it upon your son, and his illness will disappear. For death does not need to come for him today. So he does just as he is as described, and his son becomes great. And now the soldier sets up his new craft as Miracle Maker. And he tours the countryside, showing people that, yes, I can cure diseases. And even if he gets there and the face of death is sitting behind the person's head, they say, what a pity. We'll pay him anyway. He got here just too late. He gets news that the Tsar is now sick. The Tsar, who's been his friend and father for all these years, he comes back, and indeed, death is behind the foot of the bed, and there's nothing that can be done for the Tsar. So the soldier pleads, please, please, death, take me in the Tsar's place. And the Tsar suddenly becomes healthy, and the soldier becomes quite ill. Now this, my friends, is where the story takes its turn. For just as the soldier is about to die, he orders death into his sack. He captures death, the thing that keeps us from living to dying. And now nobody's dying. Nobody dies. Wars are fought, and hundreds of people are on battlefields, and at the end of the day, they look at each other, weary and tired from the battle, but nobody's died. Lovers flung themselves off of cliffs just to find a long walk all the way up to the top again. So the soldier realizes that he needs to free death, because death is a part of the human experience. So he opens the bag and tells death, you can go free, and death runs. Now, the unfortunate thing is the soldier gets older and older and older, and death never comes. Death fears the soldier and his magic sack. So the soldier, after hundreds of years, walks his weary self down to hell to give himself over to the fire. And when he knocks on the gates of hell, A devil answers the door, a devil who happens to be missing a foot, and upon seeing the fact that the soldier still is holding his sack, refuses the soldier entry into hell. So the soldier then decides he's going to walk his long, weary way to heaven, where he's not welcome into heaven as well. And so if you see a weary bag of bones holding an old sack, walking a lonely, lonely path, you might know it's our friend the soldier who cheated death, who won life, and who has a marvelous ruby whistle. So that's one of my all-time favorite storyteller stories. It is easily one of the most engaging pieces of media I've ever seen. If you ever have a chance, it's on Amazon Prime right now, The Storyteller. It's so good. I love that story.
Was this something you'd actually heard at a younger age, or was it when you saw this on Amazon Prime?
It's from an old TV series called The Storyteller that I saw when I was a little kid.
Oh, was that the one that Spielberg produced?
No, you're thinking of Amazing Stories. This Jim Henson produced this one.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I've read it. I've read the original version several times, and it's just a great story about how we try and cheat death in so many ways, but death is a part of the human experience, and it's supposed to be there. And I find it to be so intriguing, and the idea that, you know, the way we used to tell folk stories and how those things, you know, all had the lessons in them. I love it. I can't get enough of those.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I wanted to see if the ruby whistle was going to become something else later on, like if that was going to be the final key in some way.
So, and, you know, in
gift that he got
in the like original story, that's one of the ways he is identified when he goes from town to town, is people can tell by his whistle that the miracle man has arrived.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. I highly recommend it. It's in The Storyteller. It's called The Soldier in Death. It's well worth anyone's time to watch that. And I was thinking about that because it is exactly 22 minutes long to watch that episode of The Storyteller, which is how long it takes, in my opinion, to cook the perfect frozen pizza. And so let me ask you this, Tucker. When you are making a frozen pizza,
that was the most ridiculous setup for an episode on frozen pizzas I've ever heard.
Well, it's I'm trying to make sure that everyone, like, it's a long haul, right? Either someone turned it off and they don't deserve the frozen pizza conversation, or they've arrived at this point and they're like, yes, how sweet and delicious this will be.
2 days ago, JJ texts me and goes, I want to do an episode about frozen pizzas. And I was like, great. And that's what I thought we were going to do. And then you start telling that story. So I'm like, oh, I guess we're not doing frozen pizzas. I guess we are.
We are. It's perfect. So when it comes to a frozen pizza, I have to say that the history of the frozen pizza I find to be intriguing, because pizza as we know it is uniquely an American dish, because it's not, the Italian way of making pizza, where this thing comes from, is much different than our interpretation of pizza in the United States. And the idea that we are going to make it and freeze it so that you can have it anytime you want is even more American, because a lot of, in Italian, in Italy, it's fresh ingredients and it's fresh herbs and leaves and things like that go onto the pizza. Whereas we're like, let's freeze it so that when I get home drunk on New Year's Eve, I can get myself a sweet, sweet disc of cheese.
Have you been to Italy before?
Yes, once.
Did you have pizza while you were there?
Sure did, a couple of times.
So what is Italian pizza really, truly like? Like, I know you just said fresh ingredients, but there are plenty of pizzerias in this country that would say, well, we use fresh ingredients. So what is it about? What are the major differences between an American pizza and an Italian pizza?
Okay, so an Italian pizza is on the crust itself isn't the crust we think of. Their crust is like a really thin, like crusty bread. So you've got that, you've got sauce on it, and then you know how we have enough cheese on top of our pizza that you actually can't see the sauce?
Yes, please.
Not for them. They use like chunks of like mozzarella cheese that doesn't melt and spread out. It just is in an air, it covers, whatever area the cheese actually inhabits for space.
Okay.
They are, they're not nearly as big. I mean, most of them I would consider like personal pan pizza sizes, and they're not covered in a ton of other stuff. So you're not getting one that's a meat lovers, and you're not getting these things. They're very simple dishes. The way I can describe it is my Italian pizza experience is they treat it more like a homemade sandwich.
Okay.
Than I would consider what we have for pizza.
So for them, it's like sauce on bread with maybe a little bit of mozzarella.
Yes. And then, maybe they'll put like some basil on it, like a leaf of basil or something to kind of take it off. And so there are plenty of pizzerias that say like, oh, our ingredients are fresh. Well, not really. Like nobody's making their sauce from scratch every day. You're getting that out of a can, or you're making a huge batch and you're saving it along. And don't get me wrong, this is no way throwing shade towards pizzerias in America, because I think that we've refined it and it's wonderful.
I mean, do you have a specific style of American pizza that you prefer? Because for me, it's New York style. That's what I want. I want like a big, floppy, greasy piece of cheese pizza.
I am amazed that you chose New York style pizza out of all the styles of pizza.
Really? What did you think?
Yeah.
You thought I was going to do deep dish?
No, not necessarily, but I find that New York style pizza is a very specific style of pizza.
Right.
And yeah, you like it foldable, right? That's your thing.
Foldable,
and you eat it like a taco.
While you're drunk. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God. Nothing's better than being drunk and eating New York style pizza.
One of my favorite episodes of the Office is when Michael goes to New York City and takes him on a tour of Michael's New York, and he goes, "Yeah, I got to get a piece of New York pizza, one of the best." And he goes to a Sbarro's. And I always get a kick out of that.
I always think of the opening of Ninja Turtles 2, where it's just showing New Yorkers eating pizza like out in the middle of Manhattan, and how delicious all of that pizza looks. And I'd love to live in a town where like on every corner you could find some place where you could just buy a quick slice or two of New York style pizza. That's what I'm all about.
One of the great things about Chicago, and I live there, Chicago, of course, has its love affair with pizza as well. It's a little bit different than New York in that classic style because they use a double crust deep dish.
A little bit different. Jeez.
In all of the subways, like the big subway system pieces in Chicago, they've got these little like pizza corners, and you can buy you buy pizza by the slice. No one buys a full pizza. You can get like 4 slices, and they're big, and they come in like a nice little triangle shaped box. And that was always great because when you were working off a good drunk in Chicago, you get yourself a big piece of pizza, and then you're like, oh no, I wish I had another. Well, good news. There's another Subway stop coming up and you can hop off and get yourself a couple more pieces of pizza. I love ordering pizza, but I do find that frozen pizza, there's something special about frozen pizza, especially in our area. So let me start with this.
Okay.
Did you have a friend, or were you involved in a fundraiser that sold Pizza Corner pizza at one point?
No, I never sold Pizza Corner pizza. I only ever consumed it.
Listener, if you are not familiar, Pizza Corner Pizza was started in Valley City, North Dakota, and they had a pizza manufacturing plant there. And there were 2 ways you could earn money with Pizza Corner. Way number 1, you go to the factory and you essentially donate your time and they pay you at the end of it. So if you're part of a Boy Scout troop, you go and then you spend a whole day putting pepperonis on pizza. Now, it's not like a fun, oh, look at all these kids making pizza. It's every pizza gets exactly 11 pepperonis, and they have to be placed like this. And we weigh the cheese to the exact ounce. And if you're over, they subtract that, So if you're eating pepperonis and you run out before the end of the day, they're like, oh, you're going to owe us $3 in pepperoni dollars. The other way is you can go door to door and you can sell Pizza Corner pizzas. And for every pizza that you sell, you get a chunk of the proceeds. Now, this was really big for one of our gym teams, like our acro teams in Fargo. And we had a kid down the block who loved acro, hated selling pizza. So Pete would come to our door and be like, hey, hi, Patty Gordon. Do you want to buy some pizza? And my mom always would. Here's a nice quality of my mom. she never turned away a kid who was selling something. So
Aw.
what really was the punch to the gut was when 3 other families moved into our neighborhood, who all had kids in acro, because now we don't have just 5 Pizza Corner pizzas in the freezer. We've got 20. So at one point we've got all of this Pizza Corner pizza. And I was like, I don't think I like Pizza Corner pizza. Because they were the first, they were the first place that I thought, the crust doesn't taste very good. Why is the Canadian bacon so big? And then people got into like the taco pizzas and stuff like that. And it wasn't my bag. Nowadays, I love it.
We had a big Pizza Corner pizza brouhaha a couple of years ago when their ownership changed.
That's correct.
And people were saying that it suddenly tasted different. And the owners were saying, no, we've literally not changed a single thing about the recipe. It's just a different, but I don't know. I haven't been able to tell the difference myself, but I don't know if they actually did change it or not.
Well, another
People
big
really
thing
got
was
pissed.
they used to be vacuum sealed, and now they are not. They're sealed the same way the other ones are. And so I think, people just don't like change, right?
Right.
That's a huge aspect. They're like, oh, I don't want you to change the thing that I love and I've come to appreciate over the years.
Right. Typically, I'm not into Canadian bacon pizza, but Pizza Corner and Happy Joe's Pizza, which is not frozen pizza, those are the 2 places that have Canadian bacon pizza that I love. And they're totally different because, like you said, Pizza Corner has like these big medallion sizes, right? Like large, almost like coaster size pieces of Canadian bacon, whereas Happy Joe's does it diced, which makes it nice and crispy. But beyond that, that's kind of the only way I really want my Canadian bacon is from one of those 2 places.
Well, and recently I know you were asking about the specialty style of pepperoni that curl up and form little like grease bowls.
Yeah, which
when someone's making pizza.
Oh yes, that's the ticket right there. If you can put that on New York style, I'm in love.
Tucker's on it. So growing up, we were a Tombstone family when we weren't trying to eat our way through all of the acro Pizza Corner pizza. And as an adult, I like Tombstone just fine. But my trick with a Tombstone is I add extra cheese.
Yeah, you got to add extra cheese.
There's just, and not that like there's a lack of cheese on Tombstone, but I feel like when you really make it bubble over, I want that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I pull a piece of pizza away and like the long tendrils of cheese are still connected. That's what I want when I pull a piece of pizza away.
Yeah, you want it to look like the fake cheese in the commercials where it's like cheese doesn't look like that, but man, it looks so delicious.
Somebody told me that that's super glue.
I would not be surprised at all. Yeah. I
like
mean,
it's diet white, and then when you pull it away.
Anytime the food looks delicious in a commercial, it's basically inedible.
Somebody told me a long time ago, I can't remember who it was, but they said, yeah, I filmed a commercial for McDonald's, and they give you a bucket. And so when you take a bite of like a burger in a commercial, you don't actually swallow it. You chew it, and then you spit it into a bucket.
Or oftentimes you're even just faking the bite itself. You're just putting the sandwich between the camera and your mouth. So you're not even actually biting into it. I wouldn't want to eat any of that non-food.
So did you have a brand of pizza that was a go-to pizza that we would have found in Tucker's freezer growing up?
Well, I was just Googling this because I wanted to see if anyone else remembered it, but I remember it as like the first take and bake style pizza. So technically not frozen, but you'd get it at a grocery store. And it was Moose Brothers pizza. I can remember the flavor right now, but I wouldn't be able to describe the flavor to you. But it had a very distinct sauce, and we would get it at Hornbacher's, and I remember just thinking, wow, this is not frozen. It's before take and bake became a thing with, say, Papa Murphy's. And it would come in like a tin foil bottom. And it was called Moose Brothers. And that used to be a staple on Friday nights, when one of my, if I was at my mom's house or my dad's house and it was like movie rental night, right? You get like if I was at my mom's place, it was always like a classic Disney film because that's all she'd let us rent. And at dad's, it was whatever because he didn't really pay attention to what we picked out. And it was usually like Ace Ventura or something like that, though. And we'd get some Moose Brothers, and Brianna and I would eat that. And that I believe it might still exist out in the wild somewhere. I'm seeing some places online, like in Iowa, saying Moose Brothers Pizza offered at XYZ restaurant, but I don't know if it's going to taste the same or not. So I want to hit that up at some point. It has not made it up here in a very, very long time. Moose Brothers Pizza was the pizza that I have not had since my childhood and miss very much.
Sounds like we got a road trip coming up our sleeves.
Yes, we do, my friend. A pizza road trip would be fantastic.
We also we were at Schwann's house, right? So we did Schwann's home delivery, and one of the things that Schwann's had were these little personal sized deep dish pizzas, and they had the chopped up pepperoni on it, which I also really like as well. Why is cubed meat tastier than disc shaped meat?
I don't know, but here's something interesting. Speaking of Schwann's, I'm looking at a website called cyclonefanatic.com, and it's a thread on their message board from back in June of this year. Someone asking who else remembers Moose Brothers Pizza, and one of the responses is they remember it well and that it was part of Marvin Schwann's pizza empire. His son-in-law marketed the Moose Brothers label, so I got to assume that's the same Schwann's you're talking about.
Oh my God. Is this happening right now? Are we making connections to our childhood in just a distant memory way?
Oh, I think someone even posted an old ad. Oh, but I got to be a member of this website, and I don't want to be a member of this website. But a lot of people are remembering it, so it definitely existed. I'm not misremembering it like you claim I'm misremembering the yellow Dick Tracy wallet. This is definitely a thing that was real.
Well, so good. I'm glad
we got to find this.
Okay, so let me follow up with this. Once you got into your adulthood and you had your own freezer and you can pack it with any kind of pizza you want, do you remember a particular time when maybe you were buying, like, for example, I bought the cheapest pizza I possibly could the first year I lived outside of my house, and it was called Jack's Pizza, and it was 10 for $10. And you could get multiple meals out of it. And this was pretty much just, you couldn't tell the difference between the cardboard and the crust. And there was just a small amount of cheese, very little protein on it. The sauce tasted like, oh, the ketchup went bad. Don't worry, I got a use for that.
Right.
And they were awful. But I found that because I was an adult, I was going to continue eating this pizza. I had to figure out a way to make that pizza worthwhile. So that's when I started adding things to pizza, like hot sauce, Parmesan cheese, pepper flakes, anything to change the taste.
One thing I would do with pizzas like Jack's, which was really dry and still is pretty dry when you get it, is I wanted to recreate sort of the feeling of it being like gooey and oily, like a good cheese would be. And so before I'd put it in the oven, I'd actually coat the top of it with olive oil so that the olive oil would kind of bubble the cheese up a little bit. And it's not going to like burn off or anything, but it gives you basically the sensation of it being less of a dry pizza, which actually tasted pretty good to me. And it also surprisingly took me a long time to figure out that when I'm adding cheese, I should be adding low moisture mozzarella, not say shredded cheddar that's already pre-shredded in the bag. Because that stuff even comes with, any pre-shredded stuff comes with like whatever that powder is inside that makes it not stick together.
Yeah.
And that's going to give you an inadequate melt. What you should be doing is getting a hold of mozzarella, like large pieces of it, and shredding it yourself and then putting that all over it. That's what's going to give you the correct cheese melt you want.
It does make a huge difference. And when I say huge, I mean like a huge difference. When you make pizza at home, are you preheating your oven and waiting for the beep, or are you saying like, okay, so it's calling for 22 minutes. I'm not preheating, so I'm just going to make it 25.
No, what I do the full preheat. And what I do is it's going to give you a time range, right? So it's going to say anywhere between 15 and 18 minutes. And so I always only set the timer for the lowest end of the range once it's preheated. Because then I want to have the option of going, oh, it's not cooked enough, I'll let it cook a little bit longer, versus it getting overcooked and you can't unwind that clock. And but I also like my pizza a little crispy, a little burnt. I know some people who, I would consider a finished pizza where the cheese has little brown pockets here and there, not like burnt, but just like, yep, the cheese is fully cooked. But I know some people who, when they see that, they're like, no, the cheese is actually ruined. You cannot eat this pizza now. It's totally destroyed.
What?
I know, right? And they're idiots. And I've argued with them ceaselessly, but they are out of their minds. They're out of their minds. It's frozen pizza. Like, let it get nice and hot. Let it get nice and crispy, and get some browning in there.
So I am a big fan of almost burnt when it comes to my pizza. Here's what I think. It is brown except for maybe a silver dollar size white splotch in the very center of the pizza. Mm-hmm. And I also, the bottom's got to be crispy to me, because this is the thing I find. I hate when the pizza is too doughy. I don't like that. I don't want that. I want it to be crisp like a cracker on the bottom when I'm having, and this is only for when I'm doing frozen pizza. When I'm getting it from, like you said, like New York style, I would never want it crispy on the bottom. I was looking at the point of where I can fold it, but it's not going to crack.
I was looking at pizza styles here, and St. Louis style pizza is basically like frozen pizza, because they have a very, very thin crust that's almost like a cracker. It's supposed to be really, really hard, and like a sweeter sauce on top of it. And I don't know if I would. I mean, I would try it. I'll try any type of pizza, but I'm with you. Like, if it's going to be like a harder, crunchier crust, it better have been a frozen pizza. I'm not into the whole, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno style frozen pizzas. I'll still eat them. They're still good enough to eat. But I always thought, like, it being a frozen pizza isn't a bad thing. That's actually a desirable thing, because that's a certain type of pizza you're going to get, right?
I think that, to me, if I'm going to have, like, here's what I don't understand about the it's delivery, it's DiGiorno revolution, right? First of all, great ad slogan, because we're repeating it right here, right now. If I can't tell the difference between pizza I ordered from a pizza place that has a specialty oven to cook it and then what I made in my own oven, I'm probably just ordering really shitty pizza from shitty pizza places. Right? So, like, I've never been like, oh, is this delivery? No, it's DiGiorno. And be like, oh, well, why? Because I would want delivery pizza over something that tastes almost like delivery pizza. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it doesn't taste like, it does not taste like delivery.
Right.
It tastes like it's not as good frozen pizza.
Exactly. You're hitting the nail on the head. Now, I also have lived in multiple places, and I know that not all ovens are made the same. And you got to get to know your oven, because, as you said, they give you a time range, and it can vary by 5 minutes. And 5 minutes at 350 degrees, it can be the difference between having a hockey puck consistency come out of your oven, or something where when you bite into it, it's still frozen at one point.
Yeah.
And so I get to know my oven as I go there. For a while, I had one of those pizza stones where you cook the pizza on top of that stone. Decided I don't like that. Never gets the crust crispy enough for me.
Really? So I think those are more for if you're making it from raw materials,
right?
Versus a frozen.
But it's not called a raw pizza stone. It's just called a pizza stone. It's misleading to me.
You're totally right. Hey, I'm doing some more detective work on my Moose Brothers pizza. I'm surprised you never had this stuff, man. And I'm fine. So it looks like, I've stumbled onto the subreddit for Iowa, literally reddit.com/r/Iowa, where someone has posted a question within the last month. So I think it was the same person going around the internet posting on various message boards about, did you ever have this? And they're referring to something called a Hy-Vee, HYVEE. So it must have been a
very popular restaurant chain. Not restaurant, grocery store chain.
Okay, gotcha. So here's a comment left by Lich Mingo, user Lich Mingo, on the Iowa subreddit. And he says, my father was a Hy-Vee store director for 30 years. I gave him a phone call on this because I became curious too. Apparently, It was a Schwann's brand that sold the ingredients to Hy-Vee stores that then set up the kiosks. And he said there may have been another Moose Brothers pizza for a time at a grocery chain in northern Minnesota, which explains how it found its way over to Fargo since it's right on the border with Moorhead. And they said, unfortunately, you may never find it again. And another person has posted an old coupon for Moose Brothers that says "Get Moosified," and I remember this exact logo. And man, I want Moose Brothers pizza now. Oh, why can't it still exist?
I think that when you find something that you love that much, so like this is different but the same. I miss cast clay French onion dip. Cast clay bought out by Kemp's in the early 2000s, and Kemp's just we're like, yep, we'll just start using our own French onion dip and putting it in this container, and no one will know the difference. Well, I noticed the difference as well as a lot of other people, and so they're like, excuse me, cast clay, you've ruined our lives. And so I desperately want that taste back, and I would know it. Like if you put 100 French onion dips in front of me and let me dip into each to taste, I would know the minute that I hit the actual real recipe. And then we had someone call into my day radio show and said the difference is that it's like calcified sour cream is what cast clay used to use, and it was costlier to make, but it creates a different taste.
Yeah.
And so Kemp's is just like, well, we use this other type of sour cream that, is cheaper and easier for us to produce in mass quantities. And so they said that's one of the big things. Now, if someone was like, Tucker, good news, here's Moose Brothers pizza, we've got it, enjoy it. Do you want a Moose Brothers experience where you eat it in your childhood home? Like, should we break into your childhood home so that you can get the full experience? Or are you all right experiencing it in your adult surroundings?
I'm right experiencing it in my adult surroundings. I certainly would love to return to 1141 4th Street, North Fargo, but I don't think the owners of that property would be too happy with me breaking in, and I don't want to go to jail over Moose Brothers.
Oh, I'll make sure they stay quiet while you watch a videotape.
Of Return of Jafar.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Maybe we'll just walk down the street to Horseman Elementary School and sit in the playground, and I could eat it there because I think that's a public place and it's okay for me to eat my Moose Brothers pizza there. That's the thing, though. But you're hitting the nail on the head with these old flavors of stuff. You do have to go back and find out exactly what the ingredients were that they were using. You can't just go, oh, it's mozzarella and sauce, right? No, it's the sauce is the thing that I remember having a very distinct flavor. And I wish I could just describe it. I wish I had the ability to put this memory that I have into words, but I don't, right? It had a certain flavor profile. And it's kind of the same way where we used to have this restaurant in Fargo called Giovanni's Pizza. And I remember Giovanni's. I miss Giovanni's Pizza. That was the best greasy pizza I've ever had. I had heard that there was a place in town that might have still had it, but that's gone now. And so Giovanni's is no more, but that would be the other pizza that is intrinsically tied to my childhood, even though that's not frozen. That was restaurant pizza. But Giovanni's was where it was at. I wish I could describe to the listeners what it tasted like.
Why is it that we seem to talk more and more about the idea that, well, such and such had a recipe, and then it was rumored that somebody else got that recipe? What is it about the world where, is someone going and breaking into a safe hidden under someone's bed to get the secret recipe? When it boils down to it, it's sort of like they probably all got their sauce from Cisco. When Maybe. It came down to it.
But there is something special going on with each one because they do have some level of flavor profile that does remain the same. If I were to go, is there any place in town here that gets even remotely close to Giovanni's? Honestly, I'd say it's probably Casey's, which is weird because it's a gas station, right? It's a gas station chain. But their pizza has a very similar, I'm using the word profile a lot, like a cheese and grease profile to it, to Giovanni's. It's not the same, but I can't think of any other place that's any closer. But if you put a piece of, let's just keep it in pepperoni for right now, right? If someone put a slice of Pizza Hut pizza, a slice of Happy Joe's pizza, a slice of Domino's pizza, and a slice of Papa John's pizza, I guarantee that you and I, JJ, would each know exactly which one was which.
I think that you're correct. In fact,
right?
I feel like that is maybe one of the things that I can give to humanity is my ability to identify pizzas by sight alone.
Right.
So,
and if it comes with a giant pepper in the box, you know it's Papa John's.
Yeah, right. Or garlic butter.
Yeah.
I think to me at one point, frozen pizzas kind of overstayed their welcome, and they got a little too fancy and a little too weird. You know, like for example, you can get mac and cheese frozen pizza now, which is a pizza covered with macaroni and cheese with then another layer of cheese.
You know, I like macaroni and cheese as much as the next dude, but whenever I see, I'm really big into food on Instagram and on the internet, right? Just seeing stuff that makes your mouth water. And there's always cool recipes where people are combining, foods just to make it like a real guilty pleasure. But I always feel like they ruin it when they put mac and cheese on top. That just doesn't belong on sandwiches or pizzas or whatever. It's its own thing.
Here's the problem I see. We can't decide if macaroni and cheese is a topping or a base.
It's a base. It is a base.
Right,
it's
because people are putting macaroni and cheese on top of stuff, but then they're also like, oh, we put brisket on top of this macaroni and cheese. No. It's either a top or a base. What is it?
Right. I mean, they're treating it like, oh, when we're building the sandwich, you're going to have your proteins, you're going to have your veggies, you're going to have your carbs, and you're going to have your cheese component. And they want the mac and cheese to be the cheese on the thing. But that it's pasta. It's extra carbs with like a really loose cheese sauce if you're doing it craft style. Or if it's shells, it's going to be falling all over the place. It's going to be an absolute mess. You're going to need a spork to finish up that. And at that point, you might as well have not put it on the sandwich in the first place.
I think we really hit a nerve with you and your how people are using mac and cheese willy-nilly.
Well, it pisses me off, JJ.
Good.
It pisses me off almost as much as the time I tried spaghetti pizza, which was so dumb. I tried it because I was with Greg Carlson and some friends visiting Duluth for the Free Range Film Festival. We went to a local pizzeria, and it's a great pizzeria. I can't remember the name of it, but they have delicious food.
It's called Domino's.
It's not Domino's. It's another place. It's like a local like mom and pop place.
Pizza Hut.
But it's not. It's not. But they have a bunch of interesting flavor types of pizza, right? And I am someone who, when I'm visiting a place I don't normally go to, and I see a menu option that I've never had before, I go, you know what? I'm trying new things. I should try this too, even though I've tried spaghetti and I've tried pizza. I've never tried spaghetti on pizza. Well, guess what? It's exactly what you think it is. It's pizza that someone's dumped a bunch of fucking spaghetti on top of. It's worthless. Never, ever, ever, ever put pasta on anything else besides the bowl and plate that you're eating it in.
You are. I love the passion in your voice. Like,
have I said anything that's wrong, JJ? Anything at all right now?
I'm going to say this. Have you ever had spaghetti pie?
No.
Okay, so I agree with you 95% of the way, but Old Chicago, a pizza joint, used to make a thing called spaghetti pie, where essentially what they did is they took the noodles and the sauce and they let it kind of solidify in a pie pan. And then they would rewarm it and slice it for you, and so you'd eat slices of spaghetti pie, and they'd put a fresh sauce on the top. It was amazing.
You know what that is? That's lasagna. That's what that is. That's shitty lasagna is what that is. Never ever pay a restaurant money for shitty lasagna. Come on. If you have spaghetti noodles, it shouldn't be like in a solid mass. Like, it should be loose. That's why they call them noodles, because they look noodly, right? That's like a word that just describes the way something looks. God damn it, I'm mad right now.
Noodles loose.
I'm so mad right now. If someone tried to do that with like Cincinnati style, I'd be like, fuck you. This is not happening. We're leaving this restaurant right now. Come on, honey. Get the kids. We're going. Like,
Now-
we're not doing this shit.
Well, okay, so I know how you. So that's why there's not frozen pasta, right? Is
Right.
because it just doesn't work like that. So I
Right.
agree. So why is it that pizza seems to be the number one meal choice where we're fine pre-making it and then freezing it and reheating it later? Because there's a difference in freshness. Have you ever had a frozen pizza that's been in the freezer too long and you know
Well,
it?
But it has not been, with the exception, I'm sure, of the crust, it has not been pre-baked because the sauce hasn't been cooked yet, I don't think. And the cheese clearly has not been cooked yet. I mean, you could make the argument that the cured meat like pepperoni has some level of preparation going into it, but it hasn't been heated yet. So I think prepping something before heating it in a freezer makes sense. It makes sense maybe if you're going to freeze spaghetti just to thaw it out again later as spaghetti, but not in some like egg bake or a pie, which just sounds like Chicago style pizza with spaghetti on it, to be frank.
Now, see, you may have really hit into something there. Chicago style pizza with spaghetti on it. I'm going to get the scientists working on that right now. I will also tell you a horrible story about frozen pizza. So New Year's, I'm going to say 2007, maybe. My sister and a coworker of mine, we're all out celebrating New Year's, and my sister ends up bringing a bunch of people back to her place for an after party after the bars close. And this coworker's like, Chrissy, I'm really hungry. Can I make a pizza? And she's like, sure. So they put a pizza in, and then the party moves to someplace else. And the next thing my sister knows is they walk back into her apartment and it's filled with smoke.
Oh,
They did the classic partying. I left a pizza in the oven. Now, this guy was so far gone that he reached into the oven with his bare hands and pulled the pizza out and walked it across their apartment and opened up their sliding glass door window and put it out on their porch. So the next morning, this is what they see. There's a burnt to a crisp frozen pizza on their porch, and our friend Jeremy Hackey has burns all over his hands, like really bad burns.
oh my God.
And I'll admit I've forgotten a couple frozen pizzas in like when I pop them in the oven at one point. I get lost doing something else. I'll go outside to play with the dogs for a little bit and get on the phone, and before you know it, 45 minutes has gone by, and I've got a toasted pizza sitting in there. I also remember a situation where, again, some alcohol was involved, and we started eating this pizza. I'm like, this pizza's really bad. It's really cold. Well, we had forgotten to put it into the oven. We just let it sit out on the countertop for like 45 minutes. So it was more room temperature pizza.
That's
at that
amazing.
point.
I have a buddy who once put the pizza in and forgot to take out the cardboard.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then he was like, God, what? Man, I know the pizza's cooking, but why does it smell like such a terrible burn? And he like practically ruined his oven at the same time.
One of my favorite stories about my younger sister is years ago. I had a friend who opened up the freezer at one of my apartments, like the top freezer on my refrigerator unit, and tore off one of the shelving units.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to charge me like $300 for this. And so I had seen this infomercial for Miracle Putty. It's a putty that, you put it on this and it reforms and there you're good to go. And it dries white. And so I thought, I'm going to try this Miracle Putty. So what you do is you get two separate containers and you mash them together, and then it forms like an adhesive bond to this. And I'm like, this is great. So I formed the adhesive bond. Well, what happens is there's a chemical reaction. It's like a putty version of epoxy. And if you didn't know this, the way your refrigerator works is it actually is moving air out of your refrigerator to remove humidity, and it cycles this air through the freezer and the fridge, and it's got condensed space. So this chemical reaction is taking place, and if you've ever had something that really is stinky or bad in your fridge and you can't get rid of that smell even after you've removed it, it's because that air is caught up in the cycle that's moving it around.
Right.
So my sister comes over and I make a frozen pizza, and we sit down and we're going to watch a movie while we are going to eat this pizza. And she takes a couple bites and then she stops and I'm getting, like some Parmesan. I come over and she waits for me to take a bite, and I take a bite and I'm like, oh God, this tastes like cleaning chemicals. And she's like, I thought so too. Why did you let me take a bite? Well, I didn't want to be the only one who experienced this. And so everything in my fridge and freezer was completely ruined because it had absorbed the flavor of this chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. It was real bummer.
Are there toppings that you refuse to eat on a pizza?
Outside,
and I'm talking about, we're talking about like classic toppings, so not like bananas or something. Right. I'm saying like something that people would normally actually put in a pizza that you refuse to eat.
Right. Like I don't find chicken Alfredo pizza to be very tempting, but those are outside the realm of regular ingredients, right?
Right. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, it is a kind that you're going to see at a lot of pizza buffets. So I would call it regular enough. And I'm with you. I want a red sauce. I don't want a white sauce. I mean, rarely do I ever want chicken Alfredo in the first place. But definitely not on a pizza. It does not work, I think.
There are not. I am not a picky person when it comes to pizza. I am willing to try and eat anything. Gone are the days of where things like, oh, green peppers, gross. Nope. I will gladly take it. I don't think that there have been very many pizzas that I don't get into. Okay. That being said, my preference is I'm a pepperoni guy. I love pepperoni.
It's a classic. It's an absolute classic.
And not all pepperoni is made the same, too. We talked about those little tiny, delicious, crispy grease bowls in there. There are certain types of pepperoni I like more than others if I'm going to have it. In fact, there's a couple places that have multiple types of pepperoni on a single pepperoni pizza, and that really floats my boat.
Yeah, I dig that a lot, too. I never want to eat pizza with olives on it, either black or green. I don't dig them. I do actually like green peppers a lot. I have no problem with that, but it's olives or mushrooms. I don't like mushrooms on a pizza at all. I mean, I don't like mushrooms at all, and I don't like olives at all. So those are two things that I'm always seeing on pizzas that I'll skip over if it happens. I'm actually not really a big fan of chicken. I mean, I like chicken, but having chicken on pizza is just something that I'm not gravitating towards unless it's buffalo chicken. If it's buffalo's, just chicken and buffalo sauce, then I'll hit it because I'll eat buffalo anything basically.
Interesting. Okay, so I do enjoy some buffalo sauce. To me, I'm into spicier pizzas. So there's a brand called Latza Matza, and they actually have a new one called Hatza Matza, which is a very it uses hot peppers and a spicier sauce. And it's the type of thing that after 3 pieces, my forehead is sweating real bad. Like, it's not an attractive pizza for me to eat. It is certainly a, oh my God, does that guy need to go to the hospital type pizza? And I like that a lot.
I want to like Latza Matza pizza. And I know that I'm the outlier on this one because it says Latza Matza. That should tell you right away that it's delicious, right? But I find their sauce to be too sweet. It tastes to me almost like someone has dumped extra sugar or even Splenda or something in the sauce. And I don't know what my problem is because I know Latza Matza is very popular in town here. It really is. It's in every grocery store in our area for sure. But I've tried it and just didn't dig it. There was a period of time during last year's lockdown where I was like always eating the Pizza Corner personal sized pepperoni pizzas. And that must have been like a massive time for those because those never stay on the shelf anymore whenever I see them. I never, ever can find the personal sized pepperoni Pizza Corner pizzas. And that was like keeping me going during the I can't talk. That's how fucking pissed off I am about pizza right now. It is during the pandemic. That was the kind of pizza I was trying to eat, but now it's almost never on the shelves. It was scarcer than toilet paper at one point.
Do you think that people found a new affinity and they said, listen, my favorite my favorite pizza isn't available in the freezer section, so I'm going to branch out and try a different one? Or they're like, nope, if they don't have Red Baron, screw it, I'm gonna go hungry.
I think it became something more of I want to stretch my pizza dollar if I'm a single person during the pandemic. And so I'm not going to buy full pizzas. I'm going to buy personal sized ones. And they just happen to hit the right ratio with the Pizza Corner style. Pizza Corner, we can kind of get back to it. You were listing off some of the Pizza Corner types. I do love Pizza Corner, except for Pizza Corner Taco Pizza. I think their taco pizza is atrocious. It's always been weird. But then again, I'm always comparing it to Happy Joe's Taco Pizza, which is the best taco pizza in town. Of course, it's not frozen. But their taco pizza seems like the Pizza Corner Taco Pizza seems like you better douse it in as much sauce as you can, because it's basically going to taste like plain hamburger on pizza.
Yeah, and are they expecting me to add my own lettuce?
There's no lettuce on it, so you are going to have to. I mean, that makes some sense in that the lettuce, you probably don't want to bake it too much. But
you can't freeze lettuce.
That's true. You can't freeze lettuce, but I've never watched Happy Joe's make theirs. I just know that Happy Joe's has whatever it is that they've tuned in. I haven't had Happy Joe's in probably 2 years now. Then I think about it. It's been a long time. Theirs has a very specific flavor profile. I was just talking about this with my coworker yesterday too. There's another place in town that I love called Pizza Patrol. 2419000 is their number. And they don't have many storefronts left, but their recipe seems to have not changed for like 20 years.
Do you know what their website is?
Is it 2419000?
Yeah, it is. Isn't that genius?
That is genius.
Yeah, one of the best marketing things I think I've ever heard of.
It's like former Governor Schaefer, like part owner or something, because he used to be like the spokesperson for them.
And he, like, I feel like, didn't he show up on a weird, like, there's another pizza company too in town that, like, he must just love pizza.
Right.
Former Governor Ed Schaefer just loves pizza, apparently.
Is he still with us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know him, so.
Yeah, I just filmed a commercial with him not too long ago.
Okay. Hey, what do you think about dessert pizza?
Ooh, I am against dessert pizza. And here's why. Here's why. It's called pie. And it's existed for a long time, and it's great. Why are you trying to force something to be on there just because you put some blueberry pie filling on top of a flat pie crust and you're like, it's dessert pizza? No, right. that doesn't, I feel the same way about dessert pizza that you feel, I think, about pasta dishes being used outside the realm of just a pasta dish.
That makes sense. But here's where I see maybe this is just my own thing, but I've always seen dessert pizza as just not actually being pizza. It's just sort of like a fun way of calling the dessert something because it resembles the shape of pizza, but it's not real pizza. Versus I think spaghetti pizza is real pizza. It's just bullshit pizza. It's stupid pizza. You shouldn't eat it.
So many times we ask our scientists, is this worth it? And
what's the Malcolm's? It's like we wanted to find out if we could, but we never stopped to ask if we should.
Yep, exactly. That's how we get to be with pizza. And at one point, like when alien civilizations come and find the ruins of mankind, they're going to be like, what ended their society? And someone's like, they put ribs on pizza, and we're like, ribs, like delicious ribs? Yeah, they tried putting it on pizza. Oh yeah, well, fuck them.
I've always wanted to know what the sales numbers were for pizza, nationally once the Ninja Turtles hit.
Oh, that had to be the best thing for pizza in decades.
Yeah. I mean, American style pizza was invented, I'm assuming, in the 20th century.
Yeah.
If not the mid 20th century. I'm not quite sure exactly when it was really reached what it was today, but the Ninja Turtles made that's how I even became aware of pizza in the first place.
Is because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I believe so.
I think that is one of the most adorable stories ever. I agree with you. That's my love of pizza certainly comes from I love the Ninja Turtles so much that I want to be a part of it.
Of course, they do like really weird stuff. They put like marshmallows and I've never ever seen a pizza place that offers anchovies, but I always knew growing up that anchovies is the gross topping you don't want to get.
Right. They're like, oh, sick. I've had anchovies on pizza and I think it's just fine. Anchovies are really salty. So your dislike of olives on pizza, I think would dissuade you from anchovies on pizza.
I mean, I just the times I have seen it in front of me, it never looked good anyways. So I'm not going to try it. I'm 36. I know what I like when it comes to pizza. I'll still try new things. I might try like a little slice, but I'm not going to order an entire sardine or anchovy pizza. One time, when I was in the Twin Cities with my girlfriend at the time, I forget where we ordered from, but we wanted to order pizza. So we ordered it and we each ordered ourselves a personal size pizza, and they were build your own. And so I got mine with salami and shrimp on it. And I remember when I told the guy on the phone, he goes, "Really?" I'm like, dude, you have stoners like fucking ordering pizza from you all the time. There's no way I'm saying something you've never heard before. But yeah, he'd never heard salami and shrimp on a pizza before. And you know what? It was delicious.
I have a hard, I mean, I'm in that guy's court here with like, really? It was?
Try
really?
it. Try it.
I had shrimp on pizza for the first time ever a couple weeks ago, and it was fine, but it made me wish, like, God, I wish that this was in a cream sauce and surrounded by angel hair pasta. But you know, that's just who I am. I also want to just throw this one out there because I think anyone who's still listening, who hasn't like gone to their freezer to see if they have a frozen pizza at this point. When you make, so a lot of places, like if you have a favorite place, like pizza place in town, will give you a par baked pizza, where essentially they give you a pizza that you can take home and put in your freezer, and then you can reheat at your convenience. This is really big in our neck of the woods, Tucker, because people would take them to the lakes area.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where people got so excited about the par bake. And so whatever way you consume pizza is the correct way for you. Don't let anyone tell you that you should be doing pizza in one way or another. Even if you like your spaghetti on pizza, you do you, okay, girl? But,
I mean, it's wrong, but do it.
Yeah,
I guess.
right?
Fly your stupid freak flag if that's what you're going to do, but I don't fucking like you.
There you go. Well, good news. We're going to get a hold of Moose Brothers Spaghetti Pizza and force Tucker to shove some of it down his gullet.
Well, according to the subreddit for Iowa, it doesn't exist anymore. So I guess fat chance of making that happen.
Well, again, should we go find the old owner and we'll break into his house and I'll make sure they stay quiet while you create Moose Brothers Pizza from the recipe that's in the safe under his bed?
Let's do it. I'll start up my Subaru Forester.
All right. And if he doesn't have it, we'll go to his brother, who's also named Moose. Folks, frozen pizza. I love it. You love it. America loves it. And so that's why we salute the frozen pizza. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. The one thing that I don't think I would put on pizza, if you showed me a giant buffet of ingredients and you could say you could put anything on here, would be poison.